Justin Bajema, Corporal United States Marine Corps, retired, and this is my story. I joined the Marine Corps in May of 2001. One of the big reasons I really joined was my grandfather. I respect my grandpa a lot, and he served and fought in World War II in the Solomon Islands, and he never talked about it. And I always wondered why he never talked about it. And since then, I've learned, be careful what you wish for. You just might find out. After graduating from boot camp, I went back to School of Infantry, and the date was 9/11. It was that morning. We looked out the squad bay, out the windows, and we saw a bunch of activity going on base. And they came into the schoolhouse and told us that a plane had just flown into the World Trade Center. At the time, we were thinking like this small Cessna or something that flew in, hit the building. Maybe a half hour later, something like that, they came back in, said a second plane flew into the Trade Center towers. And that's when we knew we were under attack. And that moment changed everything.
I remember when you tell this story often, you talk about how you think it was a joke at first because it was your first day and you thought they were just messing with you, like often happens.
Yeah, so in the Marine Corps it's called fuck games. And we thought they were screwing with us. But they weren't. So the rest of my infantry training, that really changed the intensity, changed the purpose of what we were doing. And inherently deep down inside, I knew I was going to war. At that moment, I knew it was coming. And honestly, that's why I joined. I didn't join the National Guard. I didn't join the Peace Corps. I joined the Marine Corps, infantry specifically. And there's only one reason that you do that. So after training, the war in Afghanistan really kicked off, and we felt like we were missing out because we didn't get deployed. We're like, man, we're missing the war. This thing's going on without us. And that's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to comprehend that, you train for something and then you don't get to go do your job. But ultimately what happened was it was probably December of 2002 where they called us back from Christmas leave, and we could just feel it. We could just feel that we were going to war with Iraq.
So this is the whole year later after 9/11.
Yeah, so this would be December of 2002. We went home, but we could kind of feel something was different. There was a different cadence on base. It was just different. We were prepping for something and we could feel it. And we came back, we got called back from Christmas leave. And sure enough, we got all of our gear together, all of our vehicles, weapons, everything like that. And we loaded up onto our ship, which was the USS Kearsarge, which was a fleet of, I think, 7 ships that sailed over through the Mediterranean to the Middle East. And we found ourselves in the Gulf, and we went from the ship to land on hovercrafts with all of our vehicles into Kuwait.
So when you're doing that, do you know at all what's coming up? Are they telling you anything that's happening?
No, but you could tell. I mean, as soon as we had boots on the ground, once we landed on soil in Kuwait, we went weapons hot, which is not a normal operating procedure unless you're downrange. So what I do remember, Kuwait, we moved north, I think it was, trying to get my bearing here, but we moved close. I think we're just a few miles off of the Iraqi border where we set up a camp, and we stayed there until the war kicked off. I think the war kicked off on March 20th is when the night of the war kicked off. The time between when we got in the country and the war kicked off, we did a lot of training, just getting ready, prepping. But we knew the day when the missiles came out, grenades got passed out, live rounds got passed out, we knew it was coming. And I think it was right about the time when President Bush gave the ultimatum to Saddam and his sons to leave the country. I think they gave him 48 hours. At that point, we knew we were going in. So on the night that it all kicked off, I believe it was the 20th of March, 2003, we're literally up on the line of departure, which is basically the border of Iraq. And I remember just seeing all these rockets and missiles. Holy shit, we're a bunch of young 20-something-year-old Marines yeah, get some. And I don't know, a minute later here that there were Scuds incoming, and we're thinking gas attacks. So the whole time we thought chemical, biological warfare is being used on us. So we're in full chemical suits.
What is Scuds incoming meaning?
There's Scuds incoming. Scuds are a missile system that Iraq is notorious for using.
Okay.
And the next morning, we breached through the border, through the defenses that the Iraqis had in place. We breached through that, and we started traveling north. And I remember going through the line of departure, which is we cross into Iraq, and I remember playing in my vehicle the Doors, the song by the Doors called "This Is the End." This is the end, down, 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 the end. So like literally, like we're just psyched up, like mentally, like we're ready for like we're waiting for bad guys. You know, we're waiting to engage the enemy, and we're driving and driving and driving, and nothing happened. Like nothing happened. It's like okay, that was very uneventful. And I think it was probably the next day, maybe it's the same day. I don't remember now, but we're driving through the desert, and all of a sudden I heard, and I thought we took an RPG. I thought we got hit. And actually, what happened is that I think we drove over a bomblet from the first Persian Gulf War out in the desert. So an unexploded ordnance.
Wow.
Took out 2 tires on our vehicle. So it's kind of like we thought we're getting engaged, but we didn't get engaged. So anyway, that happened. We changed the tires. We kept going north. And it wasn't until probably like 3 days later, it was like totally uneventful. Until 3 days later, we got to Nasiriyah. And that was where the Battle of Nasiriyah happened, which was very intense. And so what happened was there was a maintenance unit, 507 maintenance unit from the Army, who did not have a lot of combat training. There were logistics, and they took a wrong turn in the city of Nasiriyah, and they got ambushed. And that was with the Jessica Lynch thing. She was taken captive, prisoner of war. But Marines were called in at that point. We were to secure the bridge, and that bridge is what later became Ambush Alley, just past the bridge. And so we got there that night, and we knew we were going to push in the morning. And what had happened was there had been a unit of Amtraks that got hit. A-10 Warthogs shot up some too as well, and it was a hot area. So we pushed through that morning. I remember just driving the vehicle as fast as we could, just hauling ass through there, like swerving around. But I remember the very first time I seen dead Americans and blowing up American vehicles. It was like, shit, they shoot that. And I think that was the moment like really sunk into me, like, okay, you know, like this ain't gonna be as easy as we thought it was. And we ended up being in Nasiriyah probably for 4, 5, 6 days, something like that. And we ended up getting engaged in the biggest blue on blue friendly firefight of the war one evening on a bridge. We're coming back south through Nasiriyah, through Ambush Alley, and it was nighttime, blacked out, and we got ambushed by Iraqi's Fedayeen, which is like a paramilitary force, Saddam's militia. And as we were engaged with them, we crossed fire with another American unit. And so we started shooting each other. And then came the artillery. Then it's called bracketing. With bracketing, you shoot behind and in front. You start walking in. And they were walking the fire. We were on the road, nowhere to go. It'd been raining a lot, so if you went off the road, you'd be stuck. I mean, we were just sitting ducks on this road. I remember just sitting in my vehicle, like, and I literally said, like, my last prayer, like, you know, thinking for sure that was going to be it. And we literally stayed there all night long. And I remember, like, they were within 30 seconds. Either one there 30 seconds of dropping JDAMs, which are from aircraft above on our position. They called in the coordinates and like, holy shit, that's us. We're popping off flares, you know, like trying to like, we're friendlies for Americans. And long night. I'll never forget that night. We woke up the next morning. I don't think we really slept, but when the sun came up, we looked around, and there were casings and shells just like piled. I mean, just from fighting all night long. It was insane. That's probably the most intense part of my first tour in Iraq. Was based around the Battle of Nasiriyah. I remember we had aircraft right over our heads popping up and just, you know, with A-10 just shooting the Gatling gun, and just it was insane. Cobras coming up and shooting Hellfires, just you name it, it was there. It was very intense.
Did they ultimately figure out that it was friendly fire, that they stopped? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Eventually. Yep. And I remember we made it through that night, and none of us got killed. Like there's one dude took a round right to the Humvee windshield, right in his helmet and his Kevlar. I mean, like literally right there, it was stuck in the Kevlar. But we all survived, right? And next morning, we're pulling out of that position where we had kind of built up a defensive perimeter, and that was the day that Brian Anderson got killed, and he got killed on top of on top of a truck, 7-ton, 5-ton, whatever it was, his machine gunner, and he reached up to lift up a wire so the vehicle could drive underneath it. He got electrocuted and killed him. And that's where you're just like, you're kidding me? Like, we make it through like that firefight the night before, and he dies that way. You know, it's just probably the first time I've seen a grown Marine man crying, right? And that's the reality of war. So after, I'd say the first 2 weeks were like the most intense, you know, with fighting the initial invasion, and then Baghdad fell, and we thought as Marines, like, we're done, you know, like the Army will take care of it, you know, they'll maintain it, you know. So we came back home, huge celebration, you know, we won the war. This is before the insurgency kicked off, and so then a few months later, start hearing news of IEDs going off and ambushes. Then
So you went back and you thought it was over.
when we left Iraq, we thought the war was over.
First.
Yeah, Saddam had been captured at that point, but I mean, like, we dominated. Like, Nasiriyah was a fierce battle that the Iraqis put up. They definitely dug in, and it was super intense, no doubt about it. You know, I went 56 days straight without a shower. I remember that. We're all wearing chemical gear, mop gear, and gas masks when we had to. And a lot of times we get gas. We literally thought we were being attacked by chemical and biological weapons. We had shots in case we did, and just all this kind of stuff that we're trained to do. But
Do you know if you ever were?
I don't think we were. I truly don't believe they had any weapons of mass destruction. At the time, I thought they did.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the hype. I believe what we were being told. So, yeah, things aren't always what they appear to be.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward to July of 2004. I go back for my second tour to Iraq. And up until this point, I had excelled in the Marine Corps. I was meritoriously promoted several times. I was given command of my own vehicle, the LEV-25, the driver, gunner, scouts in the back. And I ended up leading the 24th VU into country. So this time we didn't sail over there. We flew over there. Our equipment was already there. We took our equipment from Kuwait. We drove north into Iraq. And this time we were going to just south of Baghdad. Actually, it was by Fallujah in the northern Babel province. That's going to be our AO, our air responsibility. And I ended up leading 2,200 Marines into Iraq. So I was literally the first vehicle of 2,200 Marines driving north. So if there was a bomb, I was going to be the one to find it. That was my job, to scan the road. I mean, you're looking at everything. You're looking at a piece of trash over here. You're looking at a dead animal over here. You're looking at a stack of rocks over here, which is weird whether it's stacked up like that. You never knew where it was going to come from. We never knew. And we ended up getting to our Camp Kelsu, which is our FOB, forward operating base. And we'd probably driven for 24 hours straight. And just exhausted. Exhausted mentally from concentrating on where the threats were, and exhausted physically just from being awake, and just high adrenaline. Eventually you're going to crash with high adrenaline. And we get there, take off our flak jackets, take off our gear, and like they had a couple makeshift tents put up with some cots. So like we're literally kicking off our boots here, letting our feet air out. And all of a sudden we hear incoming. And they started hitting us with mortars. So literally I grabbed my flak jacket. I think I was only wearing a pair of boxers. Grab my flak jacket, grab my Kevlar helmet, flip-flops. I'm running through the flipping desert in flip-flops and flak jacket, zigzagging. Because you don't know where the mortars are going to fall. Literally, I'm not running anywhere. I'm just running. We're all just running away from where the mortars are going off. Running here, and so just zigzagging through the desert. I'm like, all right, you know. And this is within minutes of being there, probably. I mean, like, I don't know if it was their welcoming committee, you know, saying, hey, welcome back to Iraq or what, but that really set the tempo for that second tour quite a bit. And so we were the quick reaction force QRF for the base. Anytime something happened, anytime anybody outside the wire, we got called out. We're high speed, high firepower, very mobile unit, so we got utilized a lot. And did a bunch of missions, a bunch of patrols, we're always looking for the bad guys. That was our job, looking for bombs and bad guys. And there's plenty of both there at the time. It was August 17 or 18 of '04. We were driving on patrol on a canal road, and so out there they use canals to funnel water for irrigation, for consumption, whatever, for their fields. And they're tall roads, they're built up. And I was just telling my driver to move over to the left a bit. It's too close to the edge. And as soon as that happened, it was like slow motion. I remember just my vehicle rolling over. I remember bright light, something hit my head. I think it was my machine gun hit my head. And I came to, and my vehicle's upside down. I'm pinned underneath this 20,000-pound vehicle like this. Canal up here. The vehicle ignition is still running. Diesel fuel's in the air. I could smell it leaking somewhere. I could hear the chaos already getting out of the vehicle, but I couldn't move. And I was stuck in the turret, literally pinned. The only thing I could move was this hand right here. And they tried bringing up other vehicles and winching me off of it, or winching the vehicle off of me. Again, half my body's in the vehicle, half my body's out of the vehicle. And like it'd start to get a little bit of traction, and also it'd fail, and they could go back further. They tried digging me out, and the vehicle only rolled over on me more. So like after several attempts to try to get me out, I'm like, this ain't good. And if we get attacked, there's no way I can defend myself. And then the pain, it got bad. And I remember, I don't know what point it was. I was pinned for 45 minutes. But there was a point, the only thing I could move was this hand. I'm wiping off the sweat in my head and not dealing well with the pain. And the thought of me was reach my hand down to my sidearm, my Beretta 9mm, and end the pain. And that day, for some reason, I didn't go out to the field with my 9mm. And if I did, I would have pulled the trigger on myself. They ultimately got me out. The Unit Force Recon Marines came up, and I think made 3 vehicles or something like that to winch me. They finally pulled me out just enough, and I think the vehicle fell back down after they got me out. But went to a medical facility, not even a facility, but I went to like a cache, a field medical whatever. And then they sent me somewhere else too, and I can't exactly remember what it was, but just number one, I was hurting, really banged up my ribs bad. I thought I broke ribs. My sappy plate, which is the body armor inside of my flak jacket, which I remember looking at, and it was crushed. Literally, the thing that saved my life was these 2 plates of Kevlar in my flak jackets that protected the core of my body, because I could barely breathe. All that weight just pushing on me. And number one, I was physically banged up, but the biggest hit was my confidence. And that was hard. That was really hard. And
Can you explain that a little bit more?
yeah, so one, I was shaken up, no doubt about it. I mean, 20,000 pounds laying on top of you, it was literally crushing me to death. Then to the point of like pulling the trigger on yourself, just dealing with all that stuff, and just so I was recuperating back at the FOB at Camp Kelsey. We're still getting hit by indirect rockets and mortars and all kinds of stupid stuff going on there. And that starts to wear on you when you get hit every single day. That really starts to wear on your psyche. But what I struggle with more is that my guys are still going out on patrols without me. And that bothered me. That bothered me that they were going out, but I was relatively safe, on the FOB. And I remember looking at my vehicle and like literally like looking at it, like telling myself, I gotta get back on it. Gotta get back on it. And like I was like physically, I think, scared of my vehicle. Like getting back in that vehicle that almost killed me. And anyway, I did, and went back out on patrols, and I was point man before that. I was always the point man for my platoon. And I think when I came back, they put me in the middle. And we had so many close calls on all these patrols we did. I remember we went to this village, and it was shady. And there was only one way in and one way out. And from a tactical perspective, that's a bad position to be in. It's a choke point. And I remember driving into this town, like we just had bad vibes. We felt something was not right. Something did not feel good. And we were escorting a military police canine dog, probably looking for bombs, IEDs, and whatnot. We got into the town, but on the way out, I'm heading out, and they had this big berm here. I mean, there's nowhere you could go. It's a choke point. And I remember hearing, I thought it was a sniper round coming from the left. So I call over contact, and there's nobody out there. What it ended up being was a detonation for an IED. It's basically a sniper with a bomb. That IED was, I believe, at my level because I was sticking out of the turret. And as we drove through, somebody detonated it. And thank God the whole bomb didn't go off. It's just the det cap, the det core that blew up. And so, like, it was that close. I mean, like, that close.
Wow.
And then I remember I think it was October. There's this town called, I believe it was El Haslo. And we got hit every single time we went in there. And we'd go in at night and we're patrolling. The army had pulled out. It was a really hot, contested area. This is in the Sunni Triangle of Death. Bad area. This is leading up to Fallujah kicking off. So a lot of insurgents were coming south out of Fallujah. And this one night we're on patrol and there's oil tankers that had just gotten attacked, fuel tankers. They're burning, like literally, like you're seeing like flames burning through night vision goggles. And we come around the corner, we're driving down the road, and then right where I normally was, Will the bar got hit. I had seen him engulf. Went fireball. And he got hit, and I think kind of shook us all up. Like, okay, like they're coming for us. They know who we are. They know what unit we are, and they're trying to get us. And so I think for the next 6-7 days, just like, I mean, literally every flipping day we got hit. I think it was the next day we went through, and I'd come around a corner. We just turned. So I think I was vehicle number 3. So 1 and 2. So we always had a wingman. Came around the corner, turned left on this road, and we're driving. On the corner of my eye, I see a flash. It was a backblast from an RPG. RPG goes, actually before the RPG, they hit an IED on number 2 vehicle. So right in front of me, they got hit. At the same time that IED went off, I saw a flash from the RPG right in front of my vehicle. Thank God it missed us. The second I saw that flash, I pivoted around, my machine gun fire just opened up. I mean, just laid. We were stuck. So we were what's called the kill zone. We couldn't move because they blew up the vehicle in front of us. We're stuck here. We had nowhere to run to. Like, the only thing we could do is turn into the enemy and fight. And I bet you I fired off 300 rounds in a matter of, I don't know, it was super quick. Just a bunch of rounds. Tim down in turret, he's shooting a big gun, 25 millimeter cannon. Our scouts are all shooting and just smoke everywhere. I mean, it's literally the fog of war. That's probably the biggest thing with war is like, just when you're in that moment, like, it's just, you don't know where it's coming from. You don't know who they are. It's so much uncertainty. And at that point, you're just putting fire down wherever they're at. You're trying to keep them down and trying to stay alive. And literally, I'm in the turret, shooting my machine gun over my head. And there's trace rounds. And that was surreal. That was a close one. I had many close ones, but that was definitely a close one. And it's actually the iconic picture that you have of me the next morning. There's a picture of me and my crew in front of my vehicle. At this point, we're like, you know what? We better take a picture of all of us, my crew, before.
The one where you're holding the roll of toilet paper?
Yeah.
We'll have to make sure we get that one up.
Yeah. Holding a roll of toilet paper, which is an incredible symbolic representation of the war.
I don't think I ever knew that story. That was what that picture was taken after.
Well, I literally had to go, to the bathroom here, but yeah, we were in the thick of it. We were definitely in the thick of it. It got so bad in that town where instead of waiting to be engaged, when we rolled in, we went weapons hot. Another night that we're in that town, They were putting IDs and they were making homemade napalm. They were using propane containers, all kinds of stuff, and they're elevating from the rooftops. That way, they kill the vehicle commanders sticking out of the turret, which is me and the rest of my platoon. And just they got to that point where like there's such a bad spot, like we're going guns hot. So every time we went to that town, we were guns hot. I remember one day we were doing patrols, and I think we were eating chow, eating lunch somewhere in the security perimeter, and we heard an explosion go off, and we get the call to respond, and we rolled to this Iraqi checkpoint, and a V-bid, which is a car bomb, had just gone off. And we're standing there, it's like, I'm looking at this guy and this taxi driver in his car, just like, this car's on fire, watch him burn to death. What do you do?
Wow. So it was an Iraqi taxi driver that had gotten hit by a car bomb.
The V-bid car bomb drove into the checkpoint, detonated the car bomb to kill the Iraqi police and the other people that were there.
Wow.
And this guy that was driving is just a casualty of the war.
Mm.
And that's where it gets hard, is knowing, number one, who is the bad guy. That's probably the hardest thing that we had, because they weren't wearing uniforms. We were wearing uniforms. They were not wearing uniforms.
Yeah.
So who is the bad guy? And so literally we're waiting to be shot at or to be blown up or what have you, before we can engage. And that made it hard because we didn't know if it was coming from, mortars, if it was coming from rockets, if it was coming from IEDs. They'd literally bury underneath the road. They'd bury these bombs. And the craters that it would leave, massive. I mean, these things were powerful. It could be just one artillery round, or it could have been 10 or 20 of them. I mean, IEDs are all different shapes and sizes and different power, but like an IED, it wears on you because it's a sniper with a bomb. That's basically what it is. There's somebody out there waiting for you to drive past the point. They've got some kind of stake or some kind of aiming device, so that way once you drive by there, they detonate it. It could be a cell phone. It could be a battery with 2 wires. It could be a timer controlled from a washing machine. It could be all these different devices used to set off an explosive. And it happened all the time. My last tour, I did over 100 combat patrols.
Wow.
And it was at that point where everybody's got a cup, a glass, and my glass is full. And getting real full. And I don't care how big of a badass you are, how tough you are. I truly believe to this day, everybody's got a finite limit on how much you can handle. Your adrenaline's like cranking. You're just amped up all the time. And I remember like my second tour, like getting, I think it was probably ulcers. I remember just feeling super sick in my stomach. Like it just hurt. It was stress. It was total stress. Again, because we never knew where it was going to come from. But during this time, we had several firefights. We got called out to a bridge that's being under attack, another checkpoint's being attacked. We came in going as fast as we could, probably 60, 65 miles per hour in the vehicles. I think they'd go about that speed, 65, maybe 70. We came in on the bridge and just started laying down fire, just trying to keep the other Marines from getting smoked, and I think it was that week that we actually did something that I still remember to this day. And I think it has a direct influence on you wanting to feed people. But we broke bread with a local, I think it's a local sheik, the local town leader. And we're talking very small towns. This is not like United States. This is like a village, probably a dirt floor, I'm sure. But we literally sat down with these other Iraqis on the floor and had a meal together with them. I ended up getting sick from that meal, but still, it was just ironic that we're sitting and breaking bread with somebody that was probably trying to kill us.
What led to that meal? Like what brought that about?
I don't know. I don't know. The powers that be. It was probably some type of intel operation, something trying to find out what's going on. Big part of what we did is we'd roll up to these homes in the middle of the night, kicking doors, and put all the military age men in zip ties and search their house for weapons, for bombs. And we found a lot of them.
Wow.
We'd look for, there would be IED factories where they'd make IEDs. car bombs, and we could always tell it was car bomb because the car would be like really weighted down.
Hmm.
I think car bombs are what probably scared me the most. Just the amount of it's incomprehensible the amount of power that comes from something like that. And all during this time, I'm seeing all the units that got hit. I'm seeing all the Americans that got hit. Their vehicles, double stacked landmines. They would see like where we turn around. We patrolled this highway, and it's kind of like what you see in the States where they've got that little divider where police will sit there, speed trap you, or road construction crews use it for whatever. We had something like that, and they could tell where we drive through it. So what would they do? They'd dig it up and they put
Hmm.
anti-tank mines meant to destroy a tank, and they would double stack them too, so it'd be two of them. And then we drive through. In this case, it was a Humvee that drove through, and it just obliterated that Humvee. So you see enough of that, and you become super desensitized. Like, yeah, you never knew when it was gonna be your time. Fast forward to November 29, 2004. Uh, we had been on patrols in the area, and I remember kind of being pissed off at my lieutenant. I felt like we're creating patterns. You never want to set a routine in a war. You set a routine, they're going to figure that out, and that's when you're going to get ambushed. That's when you're going to get hit, and that's when people are going to die. And we ate chow. It was dark time, and we briefed for night mission. We're to go on patrol, and it was along the same canal road that we had done earlier in the day, and I didn't like it. And we loaded up. We had our little meeting with the vehicle commanders and our lieutenant, or our action plan, whatever it was, and mounted up. Got my vehicle on the turret. Flipped my night vision goggles down on my helmet. Completely blacked out. We set off on patrol, and we're probably going 10, 15 miles per hour. Super slow. The driver's driving with a thermal inside, completely blacked out, no lights, but you can hear the engine running. And this is like right away. I mean, we're probably, I don't know, 10 minutes into patrol, not even that. And we came around this corner, and all of a sudden I heard over the radio, I think I see, and I remember this bright flash, and I remember being in the air, and it was slow motion. Like, it happened so quick, but it took forever to happen. And I thought I was dead. I thought I was dead. And after the vehicle literally bounced back down to the ground after being thrown in the air, they obliterated it, completely destroyed the vehicle, ripped open the bottom with it, right underneath me and Tim, my gunner, in the turret, where we had tons of rounds of high explosive ammunition and grenades and all kinds of stuff. I mean, like, the whole thing was a bigger bomb waiting to happen inside the vehicle. And it came down, and just the pain instantly from my legs. I didn't dare look down. I've been standing up in the turret. That's how you operate. You're standing up. And I couldn't move. And Tim, who was next to me in the gunner, he would sit down in the turret, and he'd be scanning for targets and whatnot. And he was hit. We were both hit. And there's mass confusion. My scout's in the back. I can hear some noises going on. Tim got out of the turret, who himself again is wounded, pulls me up out of my turret hole. And at that point, I'm thinking about my driver. I'm gonna go check see if my driver's alive. And so I start pulling myself, kind of like crawling to the front of my vehicle. I was gonna open the hatch to see if my driver is still alive. And at that point, machine gun fire opened up. Didn't know where it's coming from, where it's going, just machine gun fire. So I roll off the vehicle. And it's probably a 5-foot drop, but again, intense pain. Intense pain. And I'm on the ground on the side of the vehicle. And I remember just like squirming. I felt like a snake squirming on the ground. And I'm literally begging God to make it end. Literally, I'm begging God to either make the pain stop or just take my life, because I couldn't handle any more pain. He did neither. But at the time, Tim again, He got off the vehicle. He came down and laid on top of me when the machine gun fire opened up. You can't ask that of somebody, and I'll never forget that. I just remember him calling Corman up. It wasn't calm. I mean, it was a chaotic situation, but he's calling for Doc, and we had two docs with us that night on patrol, and one of them was in my vehicle, and so he was all jacked up too, So we had to yell for Doc Sebring to come up, and they come up, and I did not dare look down. I literally thought both my legs had been completely blown off. I couldn't feel anything from here down. Just the amount of pain. It was just so intense. And then I remember Doc saying, he's got to put a tourniquet on me. Like, okay, there goes one leg. When you put a tourniquet on, you normally don't keep that limb. And then they're hitting me with morphine, and it wasn't doing shit. I mean, just the pain was just, I never want to feel pain again. Like, talking to me more. He's like, I can't. At some point, I think your heart rate will get so low if they give you too much of this stuff, whatever. And so then they tried calling a helicopter to come medevac me, get me out, and they wouldn't land. It was too hot of a LZ, too much enemy activity going on. And so they cut my clothes off, my gear off, trying to treat the wounds. I was hitting multiple spots, my legs. And they threw me in the back of a Humvee, like literally they picked me up and threw me in the back of a Humvee, just like rushed me out of there. So there I'm sitting. I'm pretty sure my flak jacket was taken off at that point, which is body armor. I had no weapon. I'm completely helpless again for the second time during that tour where I couldn't protect myself if I wanted to. And just like, you're completely powerless, which is a really weird place to be, a really hard place to be, at least for me personally. And we ended up, I thought for sure like we're gonna get hit just while they're taking me out of this area, rushed me to, again, going to a cash unit, which is like a field hospital, a trauma center. And they get me in there and they do whatever they did. And then there's a Black Hawk there that landed, and they picked me up, they get me stabilized, and flew me off to Baghdad to Saddam's hospital. Both me and Tim got medevac by the helicopter. And then I woke up the next day, and they had like this the little cups that you pee in for your urinalysis. They had this cup there. There's no pee in it. It was a clean cup, but there's this piece of metal, and literally it's this big. What the hell is that? Like, that's a shrapnel that was in your leg. And it had literally come up. So if I'm standing like this, it literally come up, put a hole in my right foot, come up inside my left leg, up through my knee, behind my knee. Ended up taking out my sensory nerves, which still to this day don't work. I do have my legs. They saved my leg. I'm very thankful for that. The motory nerves work. My leg is asleep permanently. It's been asleep for 20 plus years. I'll take that. And after Saddam's hospital, they flew me to Balad Air Base, which was a big air base in Iraq. Again, on a helicopter. And I think I had another surgery there. And then they loaded me up on a huge medical Air Force plane. There's literally like stretchers like 3 high, I think, and flight nurses, and they're amazing. All the medical people the whole way through, absolutely amazing. 100% amazing. 100% focus on me and anybody that came in that was hit, wounded. Very impressive. They flew me to Germany. So this is probably a couple of days. I don't know. I'm highly drugged up, highly sedated. I mean, pain is through the roof, so that they throw everything at you. And so we flew to Germany. I was there, and they started giving me these like cocktails for the pain. And I remember like as soon as they inject it, I could feel like, and then you just kind of like, the ceiling is coming down on me. I swear I was like hallucinating. It was just like super powerful drugs, super powerful drugs, which is I do believe is the right thing in that situation. Unfortunately, later on for a lot of guys, that became a problem. Thankfully, it did not for me. After Germany, they flew me to Bethesda, Maryland. It's in just outside Washington D.C., where I spent the rest of my time. I had several more surgeries. Um, I think the big concern was infection, since my legs had been opened up so much and had foreign materials. Like literally, they're pulling chunks of metal on my legs and dirt, debris. I had several surgeries there. I remember that my last surgery was probably surgery 7. I actually had 8 surgeries, but this is probably surgery 7. I remember coming out of anesthesia, and I think my body was so tired at that point from the weeks and weeks of being in the hospital and having surgeries upon surgeries. I remember coming to and just like stop breathing. And I remember the nurse like, Justin, breathe, breathe, tell me to breathe. And, like I had to like force myself to breathe. And obviously I did. So I'm still here. But that was surreal. And so I spent a bunch of time in the hospital. I was ultimately, a lot of people came through. So this is early on in the war. And so I was probably one of the earlier severely wounded Marines that come through. And there's a lot of people that came through. At this time in our country, post 9/11, there's a lot of people that really supported the troops. We were united as a country. That part was awesome. We were united as a country. And everybody cared about the warfighter, cared about the troops. Everybody met. There's a lot of yellow ribbons. A lot of visitors in the hospital. Had a lot of famous people came through. Sopranos. Well, there was a whole list of people. Whatever. I don't remember all of them. But I remember Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld wanted to come into my room, and I said no. I was pissed. I'm in this hospital room this whole time, and I felt like I had betrayed my guys, number one, because they were still fighting. Even Tim, after Stamm Hospital, he flew me on to Germany. He stayed in country. And I can't imagine what that was like for him, because he went through the vehicle getting rolled over. He was right next to me when that happened. And he was with me when we got blown up. He was with me in the hospital. All the shit that we'd been through, he was there with me. And he had to keep fighting. Meanwhile, I'm back in the States, safe. And that was hard. That was hard for me to like. I felt like I was betraying my platoon. And I spent the next several weeks recuperating, and I had to learn how to walk again. Actually, of all things, I never thought I'd have to learn how to walk again. They ended up discharging me, I think, like a day before Christmas, and so I was super pumped to go home. I wanted to get on with it. I wanted to be in full recovery mode here. And this is probably a couple days after President Bush gave me my Purple Heart. And again, when I found out that he's giving me my Purple Heart, I didn't know whether to shake his hand or punch him. All that time in the hospital that I had in my hands, it's like, what was that for? Why did we do what we did? Why did we invade a country? There's no weapons of mass destruction. I started thinking, like, what was this for? And I came to a conclusion that I believe in myself. It came down to 3 things: money, power, control. I truly believe that we were lied to. So I asked myself the question, who stands to benefit? Unfortunately, war is a very profitable business.
Yeah. So who stands to benefit?
I'll let you figure it out yourself. So they sent me home the day before Christmas, day 2, whatever it was. And I was in a wheelchair. I still couldn't walk. I was going to go home for the next stage of like my rehabilitation and medical treatments. So I get medical treatments. But at least I could do it at home, right? At least I could heal and recover, rehabilitate, whatever, get my strength back at home. And being a young, cocky Marine, got to the airport, I'm like, I don't need this frickin' wheelchair. So I got in crutches, and I had to go across the airport. That was stupid. I was in no shape to even be in crutches. And I remember getting on an airplane, and this guy was traveling with his son, and he had a first class seat, and I wasn't wearing a uniform or anything. I don't even know how he knew. Maybe I don't even know how he knew. Maybe there was an announcement, something like that. But he ended up giving up his seat for my seat,
Wow.
and flew home. Felt great to see my friends, my family. Um, it felt great. That part when you first come home, you're just excited. You try to shut off what you just came back from. It is so surreal to go from the violence of daily combat, of explosions, firefights, seeing people mangled and vehicles mangled, and man, the Iraqi police, we've seen a lot of them get shot up bad. Vehicles be shot up. It was not a good place. And so you go home, and I can remember some stupid questions from people, like just I won't even go down what they were about, but just the falsities, the false beliefs of what war is like. If people knew what it was really like, it would be much slower to go to war.
Yeah. Yeah. If they understood the true impact.
Yeah. So then, spent the next couple of months back home in Grand Rapids, Michigan here, going to physical therapy daily. I think I went daily. I'm sure I did. And got my strength back out of the wheelchair. I mean, like literally when I came home, I was going out with friends to the bars in the wheelchair. Like, and it felt good. I was honored. I was respected for sure. And I was treated very, very, very well by our country, by our government. All the way around, I was treated very well. I'm glad I didn't go through what the Vietnam era went through because they weren't treated very well when they came home. And eventually I had to go back. When I went back to Camp Lejeune, it was probably in March, which was, I think, the time in I can't remember the exact timeline, but February, March, somewhere around there, but the same time that my unit was coming back from Iraq,
Oh, wow.
which was a big deal for me to reconnect with these guys that had been like you're so close together during that time when you're deployed, and then to be separated from them. I mean, that was my whole life at that point. And that was a big void, and like trying to piece back everything that happened. And like I wanted to be reconnected with them. I wanted to be reunited with them and talk with them. And I got back to Lejeune, and it was like the first day, and like catch up with these guys. I might have still been in a wheelchair. No, I was in crutches. I think I went back to Lejeune on crutches. And I remember it's an active duty military base, so there's training going on. And they started firing off artillery.
Mm.
And for me and my platoon that just got back from Iraq, it brought us right back to that place like that. Like when you've probably heard the term shell shock before. I think it's what they called PTSD earlier in the World Wars, World War One, World War Two, whatever. I mean, that was real. And so then the guys that hadn't been in combat yet, it's no big deal to them. It's just another day on the base. But for us, like it put us right back there. So I distinctly remember that. And I came back, and at this point, I was already short timing, which means I was about ready to get out. That was my last tour. And after that, I was done. I was mentally done. If I would have went back for the third tour, number one, I don't think I would have come back. I didn't think I was going to come back for me to do my first or second tour. I didn't think I was going to come back. I honestly did not think I'd make it back alive. Mm. But for me, I just had this thing back in my head: 3 strikes, you're out. Like how many times do you get to have that many near death experiences? I knew I'd be running out of luck. And I can remember there was this staff NCO. He was like HQ headquarters guy, never been deployed to war, and he thought he was a badass. And just like at this point, my attitude's not great. I mean, I'm bitter. I'm angry. I'm pissed off. I just want to be civilian. And honestly, at this point, like I just wanted to like build businesses, be an entrepreneur. Like, I just wanted to go live my life. And mind you, that night when I was crawling on the ground, begging for God to take my life, I made a deal with God that if I did live, there was something I was going to do. Hmm. And I think I've upheld that part of the deal. So at this point, I just want to carry on. I want to move on to the next stage of my life. But this guy from headquarters was a total dick. And I remember he wanted me to do some stupid stuff. I'm like, dude, I'm here to go through the process of getting medically retired. I've got a bunch of hospital appointments, doctor's appointments, meeting with DAV members to file my claim with the VA, and just all this kind of stuff going on. And he wanted me to do like normal like garrison Marine Corps stuff and be like proper like all this. Like we went behind closed doors, and basically the words came out like I broke all protocols like the military. Like you respect the rank in the military, not the person. And I went off and told him like I'm done. I'm fucking done. And I never had issue with him after that. And ended up getting retired and went home. I think it was May or actually it was June of 2005. Got medically retired. I moved in with my parents, I think, for one day. I'm like, okay, this ain't happening. I'm not in a position where I want to be with my parents right now. I love my parents, but coming back from this to child stuff, like, was not good. So I ended up living with a buddy on a lake for the summer, which is fantastic. We had a great time, just on the water, boating, and just enjoying freedom and life. And ended up finding it. I bought a lot, built a house within, I think, out in June. By September, I broke ground on a house and I built my house, and that really gave me something to pour my energy into. And it was at that time that I started getting asked to share my story around the country, talking about what it was like for severely wounded Marines, what that was like. And I did a lot of that. And at first I thought it was really important to share the story. Like for me, I think it was helping me just to get it off, like to share with other people, to share my experience so they could kind of feel the gravity of the situation. Like I wanted other people to feel what it's like to go through that. And the Vietnam era didn't talk about it. World War II era didn't talk about it. Nobody talked about it. And so I thought it was imperative that I did talk about it. What I didn't realize is that talking about it would get harder as time went on. And I was so close into that community of severely wounded veterans. I did a ton of stuff, and I'm thankful for that opportunity. I think that we were paraded around a little bit, kind of a dog and pony show. I think there was some less than ideal uses of service members sharing a story for, maybe it's not about helping other veterans, but maybe it's about helping their cause, their foundation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was in that community for quite a while, and I had to remove myself from it. I had to remove myself from being reminded daily, about my experiences, about other people's experiences. And I've heard grown men crying in the hospital. I've heard grown men flatlining in the hospital. I've heard all that stuff, and you don't forget it. It doesn't go away. And so I got into real estate. This was 2007, 2008. Started buying foreclosures, and then I started a first company, and I was able to channel that energy into something productive. I wanted to build something. I wanted to create good from something bad. Creating good in my life from something bad that happened to me. Same thing, 2007, 2008, with great financial crisis going on there. Just like I wanted to do good from bad. And I think that's been a reoccurring theme in my personal life. Taking something that's bad and finding a way to create good. So if we don't have good, what do we have? And it's been 20 years now. It's been 20 years since I got out, and I'm not proud to say this, but I've removed myself from talking with any of my guys from my unit. Not contributing back to the story, sharing stories of veterans and what they went through. I kind of,
I knew you through all that. Like we before we were married, I went to a lot of things like that with you, and I saw how taxing it was on you to do all those things. I don't think I totally understood it. I was pretty young when we first met, but I definitely watched you go through that and saw you telling your story and how exhausting and
yeah,
wearing it is. And also hearing other people's stories. It just I can see it being very triggering and very just a reminder all the time of what happened.
yeah. November hits hard. November hits hard. November is Marine Corps birthday, November 10. November 11th is Veterans Day. And then November 29 is my live day, the day I got hit. And so that month, it's a heavy month.
Mhm.
You know, it's, if I could have just turned off my dreams 20 years ago, I would have just flipped the switch and said, opt out. Um, and it's not that it's not like nightmares. It's not like that. It's just, okay, so today, I farm, I have cattle, I'm a cattle farmer, and we have other animals too, but I've literally had the dream of fighting in Iraq with my M16 and my rifle, and I'm looking for grass for my cattle. I kid you not. True story. So it's got this blend, and so again, it's not like nightmares, but it's just this weird cross pollination, this mashup of like experiences from the past, experiences from today becoming one, and it just gets exhausting. And so, when I talk about it, it brings it all back up, and now I understand why guys don't talk about it, men and women. I'm not taking anything away from one, but I was an infantry unit at the time. It was only men in infantry. Yeah, I understand that stuff.
Mhm. So what's changing now? Why do you want to share your story now?
As I said, it's been 20 years, and I've met a lot of solid people, really great people. Um, my best buddy, he was a Green Beret, tour in Iraq, tour or two in Afghanistan. Very similar story in a lot of ways. Um, he came back and seen his friends kill themselves, and so he's like, "What am I gonna do about it?" At first it was literally him going in and like intervening with somebody, like, not today. And he ended up starting this organization called Mission 22. And Mission 22 stands to raise awareness about 22 veterans a day that commit suicide. It's a huge number. If you think of that number, we've lost more men and women back home after fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan than we did downrange. That's the true cost of war. And oh, by the way, it doesn't just stop with that veteran. The real people that are affected are the family members, the spouses, the children. And this is a generational issue. This just doesn't stop with that family, that generation. It gets carried on. And so what do you do? For me, what do? I got to do something. It's been 20 years, and in the military, there's this phrase like getting into the fight, get back in the fight. And I think I'm at a place where I want to get back in the fight. And what does that mean to me? I want truth above all. Well, above all, I want freedom. Freedom to live my life, the freedom to choose, the freedom to build, to create, to serve. And I think that freedom is something that should not be taken lightly. So there's been a lot of bloodshed for that flag. So to me, fighting right now, getting back in the fight, isn't even so much maybe for the veteran, the service member. Maybe it's for their family, their children, their grandchildren. Like, where does this stop? Where does the trauma of war stop? If we can't get our heads around it. So, Magnus and Mission 22, I think I've done a phenomenal job of just raising awareness. I think that as a society, I think we all have an obligation to carry that burden. Only 1% of the citizens of America serve in the military. 1%. Of that 1%, this is a much smaller number that actually go fight. It's now, today in America, we have a society that is so far disconnected from war, they can't comprehend and understand the gravity and the weight and the burden that service members come back with and live with daily. I've never been suicidal, except for the time I was trapped in my vehicle. And that was different. That was not suicidal. That was needing pain to end. Thankfully, I've never been suicidal. But I get it. With a lack of purpose, what is there? And so for me, purpose is a big part. As you know, it's a big part of our life. This is why we started Rebel. During 2020, again, it was a shit show. I wanted to create good from bad. And that's why we set out. We set out to feed people. And I know I shared with you the story of breaking bread with the local tribal leaders in Iraq. Like, bread, food, brings people together. And so I think just 20 years later, I've had a lifetime of experience and capabilities and awareness and understanding that it's my generation's time to stand up and lead. I truly feel that. I feel that our veterans are our country's #1 underutilized asset. You want to talk about give a damn, which is our tagline, right? Because we give a damn.
Mm-hmm.
It's in everything we do. Service members give a damn about our way of life, about our country, and that's the scary part. When you have someone that is patriotic, and at that time, post 9/11, after that happened, like, if you're in the military, you wanted to go downrange and get some. We wanted revenge, flat out. Didn't care who the bad guys were. Put us over there and let us go do what we got to do. 100%. Problem was that it was misused in my beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
When you have the war drums beating so loud, it gets everybody worked up in a frenzy, and there's a lot more questions than answers, I think, today. And then, go back to Nasiriyah, the first major battle I was in. I think 18 Marines, 11 Army soldiers were killed just in Nasiriyah. I seen it firsthand. I seen their vehicles. I seen it. I seen the gear splattered all over. I mean, like. Oh, and then, by the way, coming back, when we had a ceremony for the 18 that were killed there, and then to see Brian Anderson's parents right next to me while I'm standing at attention during taps, yeah, you try to keep those tears in. To this day, if I hear taps, hair in my arms standing up.
I can imagine. Very different experience than most of us civilians that when we hear taps.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.